From the 15th of December, your Amex membership reward points are going to be worth a lot less than what they're currently worth right now. In today's video, I'm going to take you through in depth, tell you exactly what's happening, what I'm personally doing, so you can come to your own conclusion to figure out if it's going to be best for you to hold those membership points now or transfer them to an airline partner before the 15th of December. Now before I get into it, if these videos are helpful to you, I would appreciate a thumbs up, and if you also left a comment letting me know. And again, if you need any more additional help for anything to do with frequent flyer points, then check out the link in the video description for my Patreon group. With that out of the way, let's get straight into today's video. So what's happening on the 15th of December? On the 15th of December, the American Express membership rewards program is going through a devaluation phase. Now this is not across the board. Some airlines are not having their conversion ratios impacted, but majority of the airline transfer partners are seeing a devaluation, essentially meaning it's going to cost you more American Express membership reward points converting to your favorite partners in order to unlock the same amount of value. Now I am going to talk about each individual airline loyalty program here, but for most airline partners, you're going to see a devaluation from 2 points to 1 to 3 points to 1. So to explain what I mean by that, let's talk about the first one, which is Asia Miles, which is Cathay Pacific's airline loyalty program. Currently, you can convert 2 Amex points and you'll get 1 Asia Mile, which can be used to book Cathay Pacific miles. From the 15th of December, this rate will now be 3 Amex membership reward points will convert to 1 Asia Mile. Now this is similar for also British Airways, Malaysian Airways, Qatar, and also, my head's over it, but Virgin Atlantic Flying Club. They will all see the same sort of devaluation. Another change from the 15th of December is going to be the Royal Orchid Plus. That whole program is going, we will no longer have that as a transfer partner. Instead of having Royal Orchid Plus, we are getting Everyday Rewards, where you can transfer your Amex points to Everyday Rewards. Now, I'm not sure who would be doing that transfer. You're going to get very poor value when you make your transfer from Amex to Everyday Rewards. To be honest, I'm not really going to talk too much about Everyday Rewards, because if you're going to use your Amex points to use them for credit on your groceries, you're not doing this whole thing very well. You're going to get very poor value when you do that. The only reason I can think of transferring your points from Amex points to Everyday Reward points would be to transfer those Everyday Reward points to Qantas. So if you had the American Express Explorer card and you don't have that ability to transfer your Amex points to Qantas as a partner, if you did transfer them to Everyday Rewards and then transfer them from Everyday Rewards through to Qantas points, that could work. The problem with that is you're going to get very, very poor value. After those 2 conversions, you are heavily diluting your points. Your points are going to be worth a lot less than if you were to just directly transfer them to Velocity for that instance. Now there is some good news, and that is that 2 of the major airline transfer partners, Velocity and also Qantas, they are safe. There's going to be no devaluation between these 2 airline programs. This video would have been a lot different if Amex did include those 2 platforms in their devaluation. If we did see that sort of devaluation, I probably would have completely changed my tune as to how we go about using Amex cards and earning Velocity and Qantas points. Now, a couple of other transfer partners are going to stay much of the same. Air New Zealand is not impacted by this devaluation. Singapore Airlines is also not impacted by the devaluation. Hilton, Marriott, Velocity, Qantas, all of them are safe. In terms of this devaluation, I see that there are a few key transfer partners that this really impacts. The ones that I believe this whole devaluation process really impacts is going to be Etihad, Cathay Pacific's Asia Miles, British Airways, Malaysian Airline Miles, Qatar Miles, and also Virgin Atlantic. All of those partners are going from a 2-to-1 conversion rate now increasing to a 3-to-1 conversion rate. I have purposely left out Emirates in that discussion because as of right now, the conversion rate is 3 Amex membership points converts into 1 Skywards mile. From the 15th of December, that is devaluating even more to 4 membership reward points will convert to 1 Skyward mile. The whole reason I don't think this devaluation really impacts Emirates as much as these other airlines is because the amount of value you're getting for your Amex membership reward points currently with Emirates is very, very poor at the moment. You are far better off transferring your Amex points directly to Qantas and then using those Qantas points to book Emirates flights, because Qantas have Emirates flights available to book with Qantas points. It is often far cheaper doing that, so booking these Emirates flights through the Qantas frequent flyer portal compared to booking it through the Emirates portal. Now, if this transfer rate was the same, 2-to-1, it would be a different story, but at the moment it's 3-to-1 and it's increasing even further to 4-to-1, which is just terrible. With that conversion rate, I would never recommend transferring your Amex points to Emirates, as long as you have that transfer partner with Qantas and you can book those reward seats on Qantas. The only exception to that is if Qantas had no reward seat availability, Emirates had reward seat availability, and it made sense and you were saving a decent amount of money after this conversion to book through the Emirates portal. But in my personal experience, I have never found that to be the case, and I've never transferred my Amex points to Emirates, and I probably will because this conversion ratio is so poor. The whole reason I don't think it changes too much is because if we go through and discuss the airline partners here, so let's start with Emirates. To begin, before the 15th of December, I was never transferring my Amex points to Emirates because the conversion ratio is poor. Other transfer partners as well, like the hotels, the Hilton and Marriott, there's no difference from the 15th of December, either before or after. They're not impacted by the devaluation, so not a lot changes. Same goes to say with the Velocity frequent flyer program and the Qantas frequent flyer program. Singapore Airlines is one that I haven't talked about yet, but the conversion rate 3-to-1 is also not that great. As long as I can transfer my Amex points to Velocity frequent flyer points, where I can book Singapore airline flights using my Velocity points, there is no need for me to transfer my Velocity points to Singapore Airlines. As long as I still have access to that Velocity frequent flyer program, then there is no need for me to transfer my Amex points to Singapore Airlines, because I can just simply book them through the Velocity portal for a much better conversion rate. Now, there is a key exception to this. That is if you wanted to use your points to book a first class suites product on the Singapore Airlines program. You cannot book the A380 Singapore Airlines first class suites with Velocity points. The only way you can do that is having Singapore airline miles. For most people, you are not going to be redeeming your points on that first class suites product with Singapore Airlines, so I don't think it makes too much sense transferring my American Express points to Singapore airline points. For most people, you are not going to be booking first class suites products with Singapore Airlines, and if that is the case, I think you're going to get much better value booking through the Velocity frequent flyer program compared to booking through the Singapore Airlines program once we factor in this conversion. Because of that, before the 15th of December, I'm not transferring my Amex points to Singapore Airlines. After the 15th of December, number one, it's not impacted by the devaluation, but number two, it's still better to transfer them to Velocity if you're booking Singapore airline flights. Now, on that topic, there are some rare instances where Singapore Airlines will actually have their saver rate available, which is a very heavily discounted reward rate available to use Singapore airline miles on. Depending on the route, you may be able to book cheaper with Singapore airline miles compared to Velocity points. In my personal experience, I've found that it is very rare to actually find it cheaper booking through the Singapore airline miles after this conversion rate compared to Velocity, but for a small amount of routes it may be the case. So now that we've talked about all of these other different airlines that are not impacted by the devaluation, let's talk about all of these ones that are impacted by the 3-to-1 devaluation. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with each individual airline loyalty program because a lot of it is going to be the same, but I still think even after the 15th of December, not too much changes with this devaluation. Now, for me to explain what I mean by this and why I don't think too much changes even after the 15th of December when we go through this devaluation, I'll take you onto the next page here. This page here is the Velocity frequent flyer program. You can see for this particular flight, I'm looking at flights going from Sydney, arriving into Doha. So you can see I have found a business class reward seat available to book on Qatar Airways. Now when you use Velocity points, you can book this flight for 119,500 Velocity points, which is just over 240,000 American Express points. Now, understanding that we have American Express points, we can also transfer those points directly to Qatar. And the great thing about doing that is Qatar often have a lot of business class reward seats available to book directly within their Qatar airline loyalty program. And the second thing is that if you can find these reward seats, you can often book them for just 70,000 Avios miles. Prior to the 15th of December, with the conversion ratio from Amex points to Qatar being the same as Amex points to Velocity, you can see just by booking through Qatar's airline loyalty program, you're saving about 40% of the points required in order to book the exact same flight. But even after the devaluation on the 15th of December, and now we go from a conversion ratio which was 2 to 1, and now it's increasing from 3 Amex points to 1 Qatar Avios. If we do that conversion and compare it to Velocity points, it is still cheaper doing this. Now sure, it is not as cheap as booking before the 15th of December, but if we do the maths, 119,000 Velocity points will cost us 240,000 Amex points. After the 15th of December, if we want to book this flight with the 3 to 1 conversion ratio, 70,000 Qatar Avios points would cost us 210,000 Amex points. It is still going to be cheaper booking directly through Qatar even after that devaluation, which is why I don't think too much changes from the 15th of December. Now this is the case for a lot of different airlines as well. So if we go back to this page here, if you were considering using your Amex points on any of these different programs that are impacted by the devaluation, go directly onto those airline loyalty programs, see how much it costs to book a reward seat through them, and compare that to the Velocity and the Qantas program. That example that I ran through with the Qatar airline loyalty program is going to be very similar for lots of these different airline partners as well. But go and find out for yourself, put in the individual routes that you're looking for and see what the numbers are. Now, in terms of trying to front run this devaluation, like should you transfer your American Express points into one of these different airline loyalty programs before that devaluation on the 15th of December, what are my thoughts on that? To be honest, one of the key benefits of having American Express membership reward points is that having the flexibility to transfer my American Express points to lots of these different airline partners, depending on which partner have the reward seat availability. Once we make that transfer to one of these different airline loyalty partners, our points are then trapped inside of that airline and we don't have the flexibility to bounce around depending on which airline have the availability. This is actually a huge deal because on this channel I've said plenty of times I don't think the hardest part is earning the points. I think the hardest part is redeeming the points, especially on those high value redemptions like business and first class flights. Once we lose that flexibility to transfer our points to these different airline partners, we are then making our job of finding reward seats a lot more difficult than it has to be. Now, the exception to this thinking is if you are almost guaranteed to be using your points inside of that airline loyalty program in a fairly short amount of time frame. The reason I say a fairly short amount of time frame is because, for example, if you had plans on transferring your points a year down the track, a lot can happen in a year and an airline can very easily remove all of their reward seat availability. So you could be looking at an airline that's got plenty of reward seat availability. For example, Qatar right now, fairly easy to get business class to and from Australia to Doha. If we were to transfer our points to Qatar and then we had to wait a year or 2 years in order to book something, who knows what the reward availability would be like inside that Qatar airline loyalty program. Maybe management go through a whole audit and they change the amount of reward seats that they release. We've then transferred our points to Qatar's airline loyalty program and now they are stuck in there. The longer we increase our time of booking something from transferring those points into that program, the more uncertainty we have. That's why if I was going to do this, I would ensure that I'm transferring them and ideally booking flights ASAP. For me personally, I did transfer all of my Amex points to Qatar, but instantly from that I did book some flights to Europe next year. For me, that made sense to front run this devaluation because I was certain that I was going to be using my points within that airline loyalty program. And in addition to that, I actually booked those flights as well. So if I didn't do that and I waited to after the 15th of December, knowing that I was definitely going to be booking those flights, I would have essentially wasted a whole bunch of points that I could have prevented if I just planned a little bit earlier. So that is what I would consider. I would just ensure that you are fairly certain you are going to be redeeming those points inside that transfer partner in a fairly short amount of time, and ensuring that that transfer partner had decent reward availability where you think that you're more than likely going to be able to get the seats that you want. The other reason where it could make sense is if a transfer partner had other transfer partners inside of them that you could bounce around with. What I mean by that is some of these airline partners actually have their own set of airline partners as well that you can transfer those points to if you're unable to book directly through their airline. What I mean by that is, for example, British Airways points, they use Avios miles, and I'm pretty sure you can transfer those Avios to Qatar because they also use Avios. And off memory, don't quote me, I'm pretty sure you can also transfer them to Finnair as well, who also use Avios. So I hope that has made you crystal clear so you know exactly what is happening on the 15th of December. Like we've discussed, it's not the end of the world. In plenty of cases, it still makes a lot of sense. Not a lot is changing, other than you're getting a little bit less value for your points than you would have prior to the 15th of December. To be honest, if you're just transferring your points from Amex to Velocity or Qantas, there's not too much impacting you. Now, if you do need any extra help, check out the link in the video description for my Patreon group. Every single day in there, I share the best business and first class reward seats that people can book with Qantas and Velocity points. I also have exclusive training videos in there that you will not see on YouTube. I've been doing this now for 10 years. I know all the ins and outs, and I share everything that I know with my Patreon members. Go check it out. I'd love to see you in that group. I hope today's video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.